so great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Johnny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't no matter here against this thing. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes?
Good night, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite sports show. Well, Dwayne may have a say in that, but welcome back to your favorite sports show. This is indeed This Just In, and I am the Justin of This Just In. Tonight we have, I always call all the episodes special, but we do have a special episode, so I had to bring in a special guest, none other than Dwayne Marcus of the G.O.A.T Talk Podcast. What is going on?
Oh, what's up, Justin? It's nice to be back on the show.
Always. So I have all my Packers jerseys, so you know what time it is. None other than the Aaron Rodgers saga. Aaron Rodgers wants to be traded. Green Bay doesn't want to be traded. Dwayne, it's been all over the news 24/7. It feels like every time I turn on an app, this is what I am seeing. So let's get right into it with the obvious question. How did we get here?
I think it's kind of hard to pinpoint the exact starting point. I think we can
I can give you that starting point, though, but go ahead.
I think we can all say, though, that for sure the straw that broke the camel's back was last season when not only did we draft Aaron Rodgers' successor, we traded up to draft Aaron Rodgers' successor. We didn't trade up to draft an able-bodied successor. We traded up for Jordan Love, who is hot garbage, and was not supposed to be a first-round quarterback. Like, this isn't, and I think the thing that makes this worse, and we've talked about this a lot, a lot of people are comparing this to, obviously, the transition from when Aaron Rodgers became the starter over Brett Favre. This isn't the same thing. Like, this isn't a star quarterback who slid down and just falls in our lap. No. Like, that's not the case as was with Aaron Rodgers in 2005, where he was perceived to be the best quarterback in the draft and ends up going 24. That's not what happens. We traded up for a guy that, as I said on my show most recently, no one, not Adam Schefter, not Mel Kiper, not Todd McShay, not the homeless guy on the corner, nobody had this man being picked in the first round. So why we did it, I don't know. But that for sure is the straw that broke the camel's back. I remember reading 2 years ago, there's a Bleacher Report story where Mark Murphy called Aaron Rodgers after we hired Matt LaFleur and told Aaron Rodgers not to be the problem. Okay, like if that's what you want to go with, that's fine. That's stupid too. Like there are a lot of different things that lead up to the exact starting point. I don't exactly know. I don't know all the intricate details, but what I do know is that it's very obvious that, whether he says it publicly or not, Aaron Rodgers is fed up at this point. I don't think it's completely unsalvageable, but it's been a long road to get here for sure.
Oh, for sure. And I've heard some recent reports, as you probably have, and it sounds like it comes from the Aaron Rodgers camp, that they would have you believe this started with Jake Kumaro, because you remember that playoff defeat against Arizona, and he had a huge game. And Aaron speaks about him like glowingly, and the day afterwards they release him. So the camp would have you believe that that's a start. And I'm not saying that, I'm not calling BS on that, because I do believe that probably rubbed him the wrong way. But I also believe he would have gotten over it if not. And as for the point that we all know, had you not drafted his successor, and a mightily bad one at that, you traded up for a guy, as you mentioned, I'll get into the stats for you, who had 17 interceptions in his final season at Utah State. 17. And the reason why that's significant, I've always said, you've heard me say this, you do not have an interception problem in college, and that disappears when you get to the higher level. You've seen it. Look no further than Jameis Winston. As great as he was at Florida State, he had an interception problem. Sam Darnold, we think that all this is on Adam Gase. No. He had an interception problem in his final season at USC. But I think what really has gotten us to the point, Dwayne, I'm going to even go further than you, is not just trading up and drafting Jordan Love. Not just drafting A.J. Dillon in the second round, who couldn't help the team, to win a Super Bowl because, as you know, we were just one step away before that draft. Yeah. I think the worst part is this offseason, the start of it. Obviously, as Aaron says, he puts a wrench in their timeline because I do believe they wanted to move on in 2022.
Yeah.
And he has an MVP season. Instead of offering the contract extension that any other person would have done right afterwards, you go behind that and then ask him, Dwayne, you ask him not to extend his contract, but you ask him to restructure.
Yeah.
And you know there is no more money left on his contract. And that's the problem. Like, that would tick me off. Not only have you drafted my successor, not only have you left me in a situation where you can get rid of me easily because there's no more guaranteed money on my contract, but then you turn around and have the gall to ask me to restructure my contract to help you with your salary cap situation for my heir apparent.
Yeah.
And then what really shows me that this was mishandled completely is that now that he had a trade request, then is when you decide to offer him a multi-year contract extension. For those who don't know, the rumors are out there that the Packers have now offered Aaron Rodgers a multi-year contract extension, rumored to be within $40 to $45 million per season. And I'm saying, why did it take all of this to get here? Don't you start the offseason with that in mind? Trade Jordan Love to show you that you are committed, or show Aaron that you are committed to him. Because don't get me wrong, I understand drafting a successor. I just don't agree with drafting Jordan Love. I understand because the 2-3 years prior to that, I will admit there was slippage. And Aaron Rodgers is 38 now. You can understand looking towards moving on. My issue comes, he shows you that he is still at least the second best quarterback in this league. And you double down on this nonsense. The first thing you should do, trade Jordan Love and give him the contract extension to show that you are committed to both him and winning Super Bowls in this roster, with this roster.
We've seen the Patriots draft when Tom Brady was still on the Patriots. They drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. Like this isn't a foreign philosophy. It's what happens. It's best to have a quarterback on the roster. I mean, Matt Flynn was drafted while Aaron Rodgers was there, but like Matt Flynn wasn't half as bad coming out as Jordan Love is, and Matt Flynn is responsible for one of the greatest playoff games in Packer history. That game against the Bears when he I think it was against the Bears when he had a phenomenal game. So the issue isn't that you draft a quarterback. It happens all the time. It's called depth. So the complaint isn't you're deepening the roster. The complaint is you've added someone to the team that is going to turn your team into something completely different from what it is right now. As I mentioned the last time I was on the show, and I'll say it all the time, Aaron Rodgers in 2 years under Matt LaFleur has 74 touchdowns, 9 interceptions in 2 years. As Justin mentioned earlier, in the last year in college, Jordan Love threw 17 in one season, and Aaron Rodgers has given you 9 in 2. You're going to go from an all-time high touchdown interception ratio from you're going to go from a quarterback who throws as many touchdowns as anyone and as little interceptions as anybody to someone that we don't even know how productive he's going to be in terms of throwing touchdowns. But we do know, as Justin mentioned, the interceptions aren't going to go away. Jameis Winston went 30 for 30 2 years ago in Tampa Bay. That's great. And he threw for 5,000 yards. That's great. He threw 30 touchdowns, but he still threw 30 interceptions. And that's the reason why the Buccaneers were 7-9. This interceptions are a big part of the game. And you can attribute it to 50-50 balls, bad reads, miscommunication, whatever. The fact of the matter is, as a quarterback, it is your job to take care of the football. One of the things that we lamented about Dak Prescott when he first, in his first couple of years was he doesn't turn the football over. That is why Dak Prescott is deemed as one of the best quarterbacks in this league right now. The same can be said for Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, even though he's not as flashy. All of these guys, all the elite quarterbacks in NFL history, they're very good at keeping the turnovers to a minimum. You're going to go from the guy who does it better than anyone to some dude who is just going to be all willy-nilly, like we're playing a turkey bowl with our family on Thanksgiving. This isn't
yeah,
Fooey.
so
Fooey
right now,
is all I've got.
folks here watching, two Packer fans, very exasperated about what the situation is. So this is not people just talking off the cuff. We are really feeling this. So in that, Dwayne, in your mind, who is responsible for the mess that is Green Bay right now?
I think all parties are responsible. And I think that is something that a lot of people watching, a lot of people in the sports world might not expect a Packers fan to say, right? Obviously, Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy definitely have a role to play in this. We've illustrated that, right? Aaron Rodgers has a portion of this blame as well. Like, I don't want to sit here and pretend like Aaron Rodgers has been like this perfect guy, because he hasn't. He has made mistakes. However, he has been a consummate professional. Aaron Rodgers doesn't get in trouble off the field. Like, you don't ever hear stories of Aaron Rodgers getting into trouble. He lives a very private life. All of his errors, if you will, have been just on the field mistakes. For example, in NFC Championship game, we get 2 interceptions. We don't go down and score. Like, he doesn't have the best track record in NFC Championship game. And if you want to attribute that to the reason why there's only been 1 Super Bowl in the Aaron Rodgers era, I'll give you that, because that is a very valid point. But and you know, there's even, you could potentially say that Aaron Rodgers has a lot bigger of a role to play in the rift between himself and Mike McCarthy than people will lead on. Fine, I'll give you that too. But what I won't accept is this idea that Aaron Rodgers is being a diva and that he's being ungrateful and that he's not, being grateful for what he has. Tom Brady in 16 games has more say, more privileges, and more rights in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers than Aaron Rodgers has in 16. Like, Patrick Mahomes in 3 years in Kansas City has more say, more rights, more weight in the Kansas City front office than Aaron Rodgers does. And both of these guys are unbelievable quarterbacks. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if Tampa can give Tom Brady that type of those type of rights in 1 year, if Kansas City can give Patrick Mahomes those type of rights in 3, why can't Aaron Rodgers get his in 16? I mean, if you think about it, Patrick Mahomes has 1 Super Bowl with the Chiefs. Tom Brady has 1 Super Bowl with the Bucks. Aaron Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl with the Packers. So it's not like they've done more in the time that they've been with these respective teams. So I'm not really understanding what the issue is. But, I mean, do I think Aaron Rodgers deserves all the blame? No. Do I think he should be abdicated of all wrongs? Like, we should just completely, like, his hands are washed clean? No, I think he does have some blame, but I think all of his blame is more so on, there have been times when he hasn't delivered on the field. Again, how much weight you give it, I don't know. Me personally, I don't think that is as bad as what Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy have done to Aaron Rodgers over this last, stretch of 3 to 4 years.
So I do have one person, but it may surprise a lot of people. What I have on my side, unfortunately, in this situation is age. I read a beautiful article by a former Packers executive, who lived through the prior madness through Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, an executive by the name of Andrew Brown. If you have a chance, go on Sports Illustrated and read the situation. It's a beautiful,
it's very good article.
His time during the thing. He's with the Packers for 10 years, and it deals with moving from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And one of the things he brings up is the culture. And the culture of the organization is a huge thing for those on the outside who don't understand how the Packers operate. We don't have an owner like every other team, huh? So what happens is there's a CEO / executive, as you mentioned, a president, who is Mark Murphy, a board of directors, and they give way to football decisions to the general manager, who right now is Brian Gutekunst. He is a huge disciple from the Ted Thompson era. He cut his teeth in the business from Ted Thompson. And Ted Thompson himself is a wonderful general manager. He was the general manager changing over from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. He drafted Aaron Rodgers. Now, as great as Ted Thompson was as a scout, because he can scout the best talent, Brett admitted that he was not a very good communicator. And in this day and age, you just really have to be. You're not managing numbers, you're managing human beings.
Yeah.
And it seems that Gutekunst, obviously being in the Packers organization for so long, has picked up on those traits. And we've seen that there's a lack of communication. That's what at least the camp, and I mean the Rodgers camp, is trying to portray to us, tell us that it is a lack of communication more so than the players are drafting. That being said, it is not Brian Gutekunst I blame solely for the situation. In my time in the workforce, I've come to understand you are not paid more money for your duties. You are paid for the level of accountability and responsibility. And in the absence of an owner, Mark Murphy as CEO/president, the buck stops at him. Yeah. And typically, as I said, the tradition with Packers is that those roles, those positions, give away to the general manager and Brian Gutekunst. The problem is, and a lot of people forget this, and you brought it up, or you kind of brought it up, when Mike McCarthy was let go, Mark Murphy came out and said he was going to take more control of the situation because he did not like what was transpiring. And I don't know if he was referring to the meltdown relationship between Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. So that being said, if you indeed taking more control, how do you sit down and watch? Because as you said, you correctly said, this didn't just start the other day. If you're taking control, how are you watching this relationship deteriorate to this point? How do you sit down and watch Brian Gutekunst basically tell Aaron Rodgers, do not be the problem when we bring in Matt LaFleur? And how do you watch Aaron Rodgers then tell his players or refer to Brian Gutekunst as Jerry Krause in text messages? This can't fly under your watch. Like, you are in control. If you want total command, or not total command, if you want more responsibility, but this is your responsibility. This is happening under your watch. How do you allow an MVP quarterback to say he no longer wants to play for your franchise after we've heard years and years and years, because the media is not getting this part right? Aaron Rodgers has always said he wants to retire a Green Bay Packer. Like, this is known.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He loves the fans. He loves the city. He loves the team. He loves the organization. How do you watch him go from those statements to now saying he is never going to play another down for the only franchise he knows, the only franchise that took a risk on him when he was falling all the way down to 24 because everyone had a problem with Jeff Tedford coached quarterbacks? How do you let this man, the only franchise he knows, get to a point where he says he no longer wants to be a part of the organization? It has to be on you. You are the boss, and the two biggest players or the two most important men in the organization are fighting. It is on you. It's incumbent on you to stop it from getting to this position.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great that you brought that up, because Aaron Rodgers is on record as saying he wanted to be a Green Bay Packer for life. Like this, and that's not. And then the crazy thing is, that's not at all something that's rare. I think a lot of people forget, just because you've got situations like in the NBA where players are much more vocal about, well, if I want to leave and play with my friends, I'm going to go do that. Like in the NFL, a lot of these guys are like, whoever drafts me, I want to be there for life. Russell Wilson had that position. He wanted to be a Seahawk for life, and then they hit their rough patch. Dak Prescott said he wanted to be a Cowboy for life. They've hit their rough patch. Patrick Mahomes wants to be a Chief for life. I'm sure, I would hope not, but they might hit a rough patch as well. There was a time when Tom Brady wanted to be a Patriot for life. Obviously, he's no longer there. So like this isn't a foreign philosophy of football players wanting to be with one team for life. I think what the issue is, as you mentioned, is we've got a guy who has said openly, I'm going to take control of the situation, and he's done the complete opposite. He's let the situation get so far out of control that it's really hard to see right now an end in sight. Because if you think about it, I get it. You're offering the contract extension, but it's like, is that really what Aaron wants? I mean, I'm sure that's what he wants, but is that the cardinal desire? Like, is that truly what Aaron Rodgers wants? And I would like to think that obviously a part of it, that does play a part of it. Obviously, he wants to get paid. He wants to, stay there, and that obviously plays a big part of it. I think, though, from just what I can gather now, of course, Aaron Rodgers hasn't openly said anything about any of this. We're just putting the pieces of the puzzle together as we've gotten them. I honestly think that this is just, at its core, I think Aaron Rodgers just feels disrespected. And when again, Aaron Rodgers coming off MVP season where he beat Patrick Mahomes, was the reigning MVP, Josh Allen, who had a really good season. Derrick Henry, who was the best running back and like the most physically gifted running back we've seen in a long time. Like Aaron Rodgers at 38 years old beat these guys who are in their prime or entering their prime. And he did it to show you not only that he's still that dude, but also to show you that the decision you made to draft Jordan Love was wrong. And I feel like Aaron Rodgers just feels disrespected. And I'm not saying this is one of those things that just ends with an apology, because I think it goes a bit more than that. I think at this point we need to start seeing some actions, because clearly the words of Mark Murphy and the words of Brian Gutekunst don't mean anything because they haven't held up their ends of the bargain. And I just truly believe that, obviously an apology is a start, but this isn't like a playground dispute, between two friends. This isn't, a disagreement between, say, you and me, or, we get into an argument, you come back. This is much, 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 much deeper than that. This is a place that Aaron Rodgers has called home for the better part of his life. And what I mean like his life as a man. Like he's basically grown up as a Green Bay Packer. This is all he knows. And, I get it, he has a wish list, Denver, Oakland, San Francisco, but he shouldn't be in a position where we're thinking of a wish list for Aaron Rodgers to go, because he has done everything to the best of his ability, as far as I'm concerned, for this organization. Like I said, he's been the ultimate company man. We've never really seen him prior to this have issues with the front office, at least not issues that got this far out of control. Like they didn't hit national news for months and months at a time. So, it's really just, I think it just comes down to respect. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers feels respected. And I think because of that, money or no money, I think that's really going to be where it draws the line.
I agree with you, it's respect. And the other part, I think it is control. As in control of his own career. Because, in football, like, you don't have that much control. There are 10 other players on offense with you, and you're facing 11. That you don't have that much control. But you see these players later in their careers, and I think, as correctly mentioned in comments, a lot of this is spurred by what you saw Tom Brady do in Tampa. Like, Tom Brady also wanted control of what was going on in New England, but that's never going to happen with the structure that's there with Bill Belichick. And a lot of these older players, as their careers are winding down, because make no mistake, as great as Aaron Rodgers was last season, this is the back end of his career. He wants control of his career. So, like, you don't want a situation, or he doesn't want a situation where the prime or what little he has left is being wasted by a general manager he doesn't think is on the same page or does not require, some sort of input from him. And that is disrespectful. Like, this is not, let us say, for argument's sake, Baker Mayfield asking about personnel decisions. And I get it. General managers are there to do personnel decisions, and football players are there to play. But this is a guy, as you said, he's a Green Bay lifer, who is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. When you were mentioning the top 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, 10 years down the road, Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the middle of that list somewhere. This is a guy who understands the sport, and not just a guy who goes on the football field, but we've seen he's an incredibly intelligent quarterback. Like, we've seen on the Pat McAfee show, the things that he talks about and things that he sees on the football field. So you have to believe he understands a bit of personnel and who works here and what. And again, I'm not saying you throw over the entire personnel or he has complete say. But if you're going to draft a successor, the least you can do is, hey, Aaron, like, we know this is a tough decision to make, but just know we're drafting this guy. A simple conversation. And, here to push back or whatever not, maybe still upset, but it can never be said the conversation was not had. But speaking of convos, man, in light of everything we've heard from Mark Murphy, we've heard from Brian Gutekunst, we've heard from even Matt LaFleur, we have heard today from Davante Adams. There's one person we haven't heard from, and that is the man himself, Aaron Rodgers. In light of all of these reports we're getting, do you think it was incumbent at some stage for Aaron Rodgers to address these rumors or reports or whatever you want to call them?
Maybe in the beginning, yeah. I don't think so at this point. Like I said, again, from the moment that Aaron Rodgers has been in a Green Bay Packers uniform, he's never really been a guy to like air his dirty laundry. Like he's never been the guy to like take to the media or take to social media and post subliminal messages or like take shots. Like that's never just been his personality. So should he? I don't know. Will he? Probably not because of those things. The other thing too is it's something I've learned for a while now. I think silence is acceptance. And I think if there's anything that was said on behalf of Aaron Rodgers, whether it be from AJ Hawk, who has shared some comments, or from any of the other close, within that close, like if anything that was said that was wrong, Aaron Rodgers, I think, would have said something by now. He just strikes me as a guy where if we're going to be in a situation like this, where, like if my dirty laundry is going to be out there, let's make sure it's out there correctly. I think me personally, him not saying anything speaks louder than anything he would say, because you've got people, close people to him, not Adam Schefter, but like people that are close to him saying that, he actually isn't upset. Now, it might not be as bad as Schefter made it seem, but there are people close to him saying that he is a little bit upset. He wishes things would be a little bit different. Aaron Rodgers has even said indirectly in previous interviews during last season and the season before, he is not 100% satisfied with where he is and where his relationship stands with the Green Bay Packers. So when you put all that together, should he say something? I mean, I guess if you want to hear it straight from his mouth, you can. But like I said, when you consider the fact that he hasn't come out and said anything that has been stated as wrong, we've been talking about this relationship between himself and the Green Bay Packers for a while now. We've seen these subliminal messages. We've seen indirect questions. I know it was like front page news when he didn't give a direct answer when the reporter asked, "What's next for you?" Like, well, I mean, the man just lost an NFC Championship game. Let's give him a second to breathe. So, we wanted to dissect that. Any words that are in a certain spot in a sentence that Aaron Rodgers say, we try to dissect, because he's not a guy that's going to explicitly air his dirty laundry. I wish there were more people in the league that would choose to not air all their dirty laundry, by the way. So, I mean, should he say something? Maybe. Will he say something, though? Probably not.
No, here I am. I'm on the side, initially at least, that he shouldn't say anything. And the reason why, or at least it's not incumbent on him to say anything. First, I thought when the story was released or was broken by Adam Schefter during NFL draft night, the first night of draft, I figured it was released by one of the two sides for whatever leverage they wanted to get. And when that came out, I said, all right, well, this doesn't help the Packers. It probably helped Aaron Rodgers. So I felt it might have been Aaron Rodgers' camp that, put out the news, because it kind of forces Green Bay's hand. As we know, a lot of people would have offered a lot of draft capital, and that's what teams want now. And then we found out later on from Schefter that he admitted that it wasn't a story that he got from either camp, that it was a situation of news he knew from the start of the offseason, and he was just collecting info. And I guess he spiced it up a little bit and waited till draft night to release the info. So it's clearly not his camp. And I realized it was not his camp when he was seen at the Kentucky Derby. And the reports are, he told, not Michael Wilbon, I can't remember the name, but he was incensed that got out. And I could understand why, because when that got out, the fan base, and I'm quite sure you've heard, the fan base is not pleased with him. They're cool with Brian Gutekunst. That's funny. Oddly enough, they're incensed with him, and they can understand why. And if something does happen, and I can see why you'd be upset, because let's say, for argument's sake, this relationship, however it works out, he will still be seen as bad guy in all this situation, even though some media portrays him as a saint, and we as Packer fans know that's not the case. So, considering his camp was not decided that let it out, nor was it the Green Bay Packers, I didn't think it was incumbent on him initially to say something. My only issue, Dwayne, is that since then, in the recent days, you've heard some confidants of his start to talk, and I'm like, hold on. Now I have an issue. Now you're hearing John Kuhn, who works for the Packers organization in a reporting role, start to air some stuff. And then most recently, one of his very close friends that works for the NFL Network, James Jones, former Packers receiver, started to put out some stuff. And I'm like, all right, hold on. No, I think if you're going to let people talk for you, you could as well speak. so we know what side you're on. But I agree with you. I don't think he should have to say anything. From my reasoning is he was not the one who put the information up there. He didn't want the information. I figured he could thought within himself whether he's traded or whether they work it out. That is something for him and the Green Bay Packers to work on between themselves without the media and the fan base involved. And I agree, so since we didn't put out the information, I don't think he should be the one to address anything. And I like how the fact that it has been Mark Murphy and Brian Gutekunst facing all those questions. Speaking of those two, this show is naturally just rolling on and segueing easily. This is perfect. Speaking of those two men, I'm going to ask you now, Dwayne, and look at my question quick. Do you believe the front office has failed Aaron Rodgers by not getting him enough weapons in the first round?
No. No, I don't think they failed him. I think that's too harsh of a judgment. Because again, let's face it. There's 53 men on the roster. There's two sides of the football. There's three different aspects of a football team. There's two different sides. You've got offense, you've got defense. You cannot cater an entire team to just one guy and expect to win a Super Bowl. So no, we have not. The front office has not failed Aaron Rodgers by not getting him enough weapons. However, they have not. Since Aaron Rodgers was drafted in 2005, there have been 3 offensive players taken in the first round. 2 of them were tackles. One of them was Jordan Love, who we have both openly admitted several times on your show and mine, off the record and on, he sucks. So that is a problem in and of itself. Now, again, we've had several, we've had a lot of quality talent grace the Green Bay Packers under the Aaron Rodgers regime. Devontae Adams, who is arguably one of, if not the best wide receiver right now, he was drafted in the second round. Aaron Jones was a second-round talent. Jamal Williams, if I'm not mistaken, was like a third or fourth round talent. Jermichael Finley, who was a tight end back in the day, he was a second-round talent. Greg Jennings was not drafted in the first round. James Jones wasn't drafted in the first round. John Kuhn, who's a fullback, but he wasn't drafted. Along Richard Rodgers, all these guys who have a place in Packers lore under the Rodgers regime were not all drafted in the first round. So it is not impossible to find talent in the later rounds. That's not the debate. The issue is there is talent that is available that you're passing up on to fill needs and fill holes that you don't really have. Again, why are we drafting Jordan Love in the one draft in Aaron Rodgers' history as a Packers there's no debating that the 2020 draft had the deepest wide receiver class probably of all time, especially over the last 10 years or so. Why are we not drafting a wide receiver there? Why are we not drafting a wide receiver this season? Why are we not taking advantage of the litany of wide receivers that were available during the offseason and free agency? So, I get it. The draft isn't the one place where we can improve a team. I get it. And so the issue isn't so much that they're not drafting first-round talent. It's that they're not drafting first-round talent, and they're also not pursuing free agents that could benefit the team. I think, for me at least, that's really what it is. Because like I said, you're not going to be able to just draft an offensive player every single round, especially when you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers. You're not picking in the top half of the draft where the cream of the crop is going to be going. You're picking in the bottom half of the first round, which is fine because you'll still get good talent there. But if you're going to draft a guy like Eric Stokes, who shouldn't have been drafted in the first round this year, or a guy like Jordan Love, who shouldn't have been drafted in the first round last year, at least supplement that by going after a guy like a Will Fuller, a Kenny Galladay, or any of the other maybe offensive pieces that we might have thought as fans, or, Aaron Rodgers might have thought may have been useful. Don't get rid of a guy the day after Aaron Rodgers goes on record and praising him. That being Jake Cooper. There's a lot of different pieces. So I don't think that the front office has failed Aaron Rodgers by not drafting first-round talent on the offensive side of the football because they're just doing their job. I think they failed him by not drafting first-round talent offensively and then not also pursuing offensive talent in free agency that could supplement their decision to not draft offensive talent in the first round.
I'm going to even go further than that, Dwayne. I'm going to say the front office has not filled in, period. And I will go, you mentioned some, so I'll list a lot of them. Aaron Rodgers has never been wanting for wide receiver talent, in my estimation.
No.
He won a Super Bowl with, and I'll mention him, Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson.
Yeah.
Those were all on the same team. The year after that, they drafted Randall Cobb.
Yeah.
And subsequently, they got Davante Adams. Of course, none of those are first-round players, but these are Pro Bowlers, multiple Pro Bowlers, and I do believe when Davante Adams is done, he is going to be a Hall of Famer. There's no doubt about
Absolutely.
that. So, like, you are not filling him. And I think problem is, especially last season, people forget Alan Lazard was out for a lot of it with an abdominal strain or whatever injury he had to his core.
Yeah.
People forget that. And then also on top of that, Devin Funchess held out for COVID-19 reasons. And still then, that team without Alan Lazard for at least half of it, without Devin Funchess for the entire season. Let's note what went on. Davante Adams, you can say, is the best receiver in football. At the worst, number 2, wherever you decide to put him. But you can't put him any lower than 2. He has a running back that finished the league with the 5th most rushing yards. Arguably a top 5 lane. I wouldn't say arguably, but for the sake of purposes, arguably a top 5 lane. A player who led all tight ends in touchdowns in 2020 in Robert Tonyan.
Yeah.
You have, on that same lane, the best left tackle in football in David Bakhtiari. Next to him was a Pro Bowl guard, and before we lost him in free agency, All-Pro center. They were not wanting for offense. And all those players combined for the highest scoring offense in the league.
Yes.
Team that had the most time of possession, most touchdowns, best touchdown percentage in the red zone. It could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Offense is not your problem, and you have not been let down in front office. Sure, you have not spent first-round talent on offensive players, but it is because we found offensive talent in the deeper rounds. And there's a reason they're not spending first-round picks on offense. Because you don't need to. The problem is defense. It has been, like, since the Packers last won a Super Bowl, when we had great defenders at every level, and I refer to Hall of Famer Charles Woodson in the back end with Nick Collins, the safety. The next level in front of them was Clay Matthews. And then in front of Clay Matthews, you had B.J. Raji. All of these are Pro Bowlers. Your defense was good then. The reason they're not drafting offensive talent in the first round is because the defense has been the problem. Now you can argue and say some of the defensive players who drafted in the first round just have not worked out. Like, I can mention somebody, Demarius Randall. Sure.
Yeah.
And when you look, now, I had some question marks on Eric Stokes. But just look at how our season ended, and you can understand why Eric Stokes was taken. I preferred Asante Samuel Jr. But let's talk about it. The very first touchdown in the game, Kevin King got burnt off the lane, let Mike Evans get behind him. That's a touchdown. The last play of the first half, Scotty Miller burned him off the lane, got behind him, touchdown to end the half. And the play that ended the game, again, Kevin King once more, cornerback, got beaten off the lane, was trailing the play, had to grab the receiver, and got the defensive holding penalty. All of those are on Kevin King, the opposite corner away from Jair Alexander. That was clearly your biggest need. So I understand taking
Absolutely.
Eric Stokes. Maybe you should not have looked at Eric Stokes, maybe Asante Samuel Jr. That's a question for another day. But getting a corner in the first round was absolutely a necessity, and that was why he had no issues. Then behind that, you then took Josh Myers because your all-pro center is gone in Corey Linsley. You have to address that, obviously, because your run game is so important. So you decide to get Josh Myers. And then you address the wide receiver position in Amari Rodgers, who really is a gadget player to kind of make up, they like to do a lot of pre-snap stuff, fake jet sweeps with Tyler Irving. So that guy is just a replacement there. So you understand the issue has been defense for a lot of Aaron. I mean, when you have Aaron Rodgers, chances are your offense is not a problem. And that is why you have seen about 11, I want to say 11 first-round picks in Aaron Rodgers' time being spent on defense. And the NFC Championship game is just an example indicative of that.
Absolutely. I think, and that is, again, what I'm saying is I have no issue with the drafting process. I think, again, drafting Jordan Love in the first round. Now, see, if they would have, it's not so much that they drafted Jordan Love. Again, it's something, which is something I try to get a lot of people to understand. He's getting old. Like, you got to draft a quarterback eventually. That's not where the issue is. It's you traded up to get him, and you're aggressively moving for a guy that doesn't. He doesn't warrant aggressive moves like that. He's not that guy.
If it was
absolutely now, if you're gonna mortgage the farm for Justin Herbert, absolutely, because at one point when we initially expected Justin Herbert to declare for the draft, a lot of people, most very well-knowledge people, more than me and Justin about this topic, expected Justin Herbert to go number 1 overall in that year's draft. I don't remember the year, but so you wanna trade up, you want to be aggressive for a guy like Justin Herbert, that's fine. You want to be aggressive and draft a quarterback that deserves aggressiveness. That's fine. You do not trade up for Jordan Love when he didn't have that good of a combine. His last year in college wasn't that great. His highlights, it's a lot of dink and dunk. And I get it. There's nothing wrong with dink and dunk. But again, if you're going to change, I think one of the things that made the transition between Favre and Rodgers, in terms of the way it looked seamless, is because the offense didn't really change that much. Because Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre have very similar play styles. I mean, now there are things that Aaron Rodgers does better than Brett Favre, yes. But at its very basis, the offense runs. I mean, not now. It's obviously a lot different. But like originally, there was a lot of similarities. You're going to go from a guy who, as I mentioned at the top of the show, gives you 74 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, to a guy who gives you double that in one season and God knows how many touchdowns. Like, it's just, the offensive efficiency is going to go down. And if you're not committed to Aaron Rodgers, that's fine. But don't commit to a downgrade and then just you can have the excuse of, oh, well, we're looking for the next quarterback. Because here's the truth. 2022, the quarterbacks, they ain't looking that good. 2023, they're not looking that good either. So we're talking 2022, 2024, 2025, maybe. And even then, it takes time. And you still have to deal with this fact of you're drafting people, and I get it. Okay, I'll be the first to admit it. Our defense is terrible more often than not, at least in the beginning. A lot of that has to do with we have a lot of defensive turnover because we always have to fulfill defensive needs. If you're going to draft a cornerback, just draft the best available cornerback. Like, they're not making sound draft decision thinking. That's my issue. The draft that we had, if you take away our situation, if you just handed someone a draft card and said, here's the players that the team drafted, what would you grade it? Yeah, I'd give it a B+, as most people did, because they drafted good players. But if you put it in the context of the Packers organization and what we have available, it's not that good. Just draft the best available at the position. And I think a lot of times teams will focus more so on the flash and not on the fundamentals. And fundamentally, Asante Samuel Jr. is a much better cornerback than Eric Stokes. Why we don't draft Asante Samuel Jr.? I don't know. But that's just where it's at.
I'll explain to you in numbers for you. And I think the reason they drafted Eric Stokes comes down to 4.29. He ran a 4.29 in his 40. And the problem was Kevin King got burnt for speed in those 3 plays that I talked about. So, well, somebody who's not so fast now, I don't think he was ever fast in his prime, Terry Bradshaw. And he had some very stern comments, to say the least, in the media with regards to Aaron Rodgers, calling him weak for the position he has taken with regards to the Packers. So I'll ask you, Dwayne, do you think he was right in his assessment of A-Rod?
Yes and no. Here's why. And I'm gonna cross-reference and bring it back. If you're a wrestling fan, a lot of times older wrestlers like an Attitude Era, like a Stone Cold Steve Austin or Undertaker, guys like that, they would say that today's wrestling product is soft. Guys that played in the 90s and the 80s in basketball, like, the Isaiah Thomases and the Michael Jordans and the Scottie Pippens of the world will say that today's basketball product is soft. This is nothing. This is nothing. This is not a new sports trend. Older players tend to say that today's generation of athletes are soft, and rightfully so. Today's generation of sports, that there's more rules. There's a lot more regulations. There's a lot more health and safety protocols, especially in football when you talk about, like protection and all that stuff. So I get it. Terry Bradshaw is not 100% wrong. Today's generation of football is soft. Now, is he right in saying that Aaron Rodgers is weak? No, because Aaron Rodgers, not everything. Aaron Rodgers, it'd be different if Aaron Rodgers is a 6-time Super Bowl champion and he's still not satisfied. Then yes, okay, Aaron Rodgers is weak, 100%. You want to say he's weak at that point? I'm not gonna say no to you. I think the issue that I have with it is it's not so much that it's a lack of the championships. I think you have to look at it from a holistic perspective of, again, you're looking at guys. If you're Aaron Rodgers, you're sitting pretty. You just won your third MVP in your career. You only got one Super Bowl. You're looking at Tom Brady down in Tampa Bay, who has all the say in the world in what happens in the Buccaneers. You're looking at Patrick Mahomes over in Kansas City. He might not have all of the say. He's got a lot of it, though. You're looking at a guy like Dak Prescott, who, even though the relationship isn't that great, I'm pretty sure Dak Prescott's got a say in what goes on in Dallas in terms of maybe not who they're drafting and things like that, but he's called into some of those meetings. I can bet your bottom dollar that. Like, so when you're looking at all these different quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, like when you're looking at all these guys who haven't been in the league, well, Tom Brady's obviously been in the league longer than Aaron Rodgers, but when you're looking at all these guys who have been in their situations in a shorter period of time than you, and like they're getting these privileges, like they're allowed, their leash is much longer. That's gonna bother you. Especially when you've been tasked with carrying this franchise on your back since you've been the starter and you've done just that. Now, again, like I said earlier, Aaron Rodgers hasn't been perfect. Okay, Aaron Rodgers' track record in terms of performance in an NFC Championship game isn't great, right? I get it. I wouldn't be a true fan if I sat here and told you that there's nothing wrong with Aaron Rodgers, because there are some things that he can fix. But at the same time, you've got Patrick Mahomes over here who's getting $500 million, and he's got he's calling plays. There's a clip on YouTube of him calling a play. Like he's actively involved in what's happening in the Chiefs. Most of the roster in Tampa Bay are on that roster because Tom Brady wants them to be on that roster. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're sitting here like, man, I've been here for a decade and a half. I've only got one Super Bowl, yeah, but I mean, why am I not getting these phone calls? Why am I not saying, hey, we're going to draft Jordan Love? Whether you want us to or not, we're doing it. Like, it's not about the input. It's about letting me know what's going on. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm watching the draft live like a casual fan and Green Bay pops up. We're going to draft Jordan Love. Just pick up the phone and call. I think that's really what it is. So, I mean, no, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is weak. I think he feels, as I said earlier, that he's been disrespected. And this is the result of that. I think Aaron Rodgers just feels disrespected. And he has every right to feel that way.
I agree with you, Marcus. And again, you're right in saying these older players need to understand things change. And one of the things that I think Terry Bradshaw does not understand, you're seeing it creep in from the NBA to the NFL now. These star quarterbacks are taking control of the narrative, taking control of their team situation, taking control of their career. And I think that's the point that's been missed on Terry Bradshaw. Not that, yes, Aaron Rodgers is upset, yes, he's disrespected, but I think the biggest point is that he's taking control. And what Terry does not understand, whether Aaron liked it or not, the plan prior to this entire blow-up was for them to move on from Aaron in 2022. And I think it's clear and obvious, and all you have to do is look no further than his contract, because there is no more guaranteed money left. So it is easier to move him from that perspective. All it is that Aaron Rodgers no longer wants to work in Green Bay's timeline or Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball's timeline, and he wants to take control of his own career. So it is not a situation where he's going to say, all right, I am not going to play this last dance of a 2021 season with you unless the only way this works is if you give me or you commit to me beyond 2022. You give me, and I think he's probably going to target something like 2024. You give me guaranteed. I can tell you right now, right? And we'll get to this last point. I don't see a situation that Aaron Rodgers leaves if they give him a fully guaranteed contract that is up to all the years are guaranteed up to 2024. And it's along the lines of a $40 million per year. I don't see Aaron Rodgers turning that down. And Terry needs to understand that, yes, back in his day, franchises, organizations have the control. That is not what's going on with players. We've seen now players are not only dictating where they're going, even before free agency, because you're seeing in the NBA where before their contracts are up. The best, most recent examples, James Harden and Anthony Davis. They are telling franchises, I no longer want to play here. I want to leave, and this is where I want to go. Not only are they telling them where they want to go, then they get to organizations and a la LeBron James, this is who we are playing with. You just have to understand this is where superstar athletes are taking the situation. And you see it off the field too with things like the media channels that they own. Like LeBron has his own. So no longer does he have to go through ESPN, Sports Illustrated, or Fox Sports. He is controlling his own narrative, and I think that is what is up. That is what the situation all about. And Terry Bradshaw is just from another era that he does not understand. But as we're talking about media and control, a segue into this next point. So as we mentioned earlier, we've come to understand that this whole story broke not because the Packers wanted the information out there, nor did Aaron Rodgers camp want it out there. It was revealed by none other than Adam Schefter himself that he was collecting the info from as early as the start of the offseason, spiced it up a little bit, and for maximum mileage, he released it on draft day. Do you have a problem with what Adam Schefter did?
From an integrity standpoint, yes, because of who Adam Schefter is. When it comes to football, when Adam Schefter speaks, people listen because that is the reputation, that is the work he has put in. Where if it's coming from Adam Schefter, it's true. This is he wrong for it in that regard? Yes, because then that you get into an issue of journalistic integrity, and that brings into question: has he done that with any other story? Do I blame Adam Schefter for doing that? Not all the way, simply because this has been the focus, really, of the NFL for the past couple of months. Do I think he should have, waited until he had a reliable source? Absolutely. I would never, ever suggest anybody drop a story without a reliable source, without talking to parties involved. That's not what I'm saying. But for your own personal, do I blame Adam Schefter for doing it in on a sense of I need a story to drop for draft day? Here's something that's got some traction already. Let's just throw it out there. Not really. I mean, because that's just kind of unfortunately, that's kind of the way that the media works now. A lot of the things that happens in the media, especially in sports media, is done for ratings. And this was just done for ratings. I appreciate, though, the fact that he did say that he spiced it up, because there are a lot of guys that wouldn't have done that. There are a lot of guys that would just let the story be out there knowing it was wrong, and they wouldn't have backtracked and said, hey, this wasn't 100% true. So I do appreciate that. But I think it hurts Adam Schefter more than it hurts us. I mean, because he's got a reputation to uphold. Any other breaking story he has, it would be called into question because of this. But I mean, you need ratings. Do what you got to do, I guess. Just don't don't commit career suicide when you do it, I guess would be the advice here. Not that Adam Schefter's committed career suicide, but for a smaller journalist like me or you, that's career suicide. You're not. You can cancel the podcasts. You can cancel all of it. It's just not happening. Adam Schefter's got a lot more sports capital that he can kind of bargain with. But I don't think Adam Schefter has done this before. I don't think he will do it again. I don't think he's 100% wrong. I don't like that he took advantage of a big story just for the sake of having his name out there on draft day, though. I think that kind of sucks.
Dwayne, you would have to inform me because I'm not sure what exactly did he say or what was wrong about his story, just so I can make sure to get my stuff clear.
If I remember correctly, he said that he didn't get his story from Aaron Rodgers or the Green Bay Packers. He got it from, or not even like anybody like a close circle of those guys. I think he said he just like he heard it on the radio or something like that, or like he heard it like an hearsay. Now I could be watering it down because I didn't write this down in my notes, so guys, y'all don't quote me on this. But I do know that for a fact he said he didn't have. I can actually just pull up the tweet. I do know for a fact he said he didn't get. It wasn't from like a reliable source, like someone that was actively involved in the situation. It was just something he kind of like heard. That I do know.
Okay, so I'll address this now. I just want to be sure and get clarity on this. And not just as a podcaster, what Dwayne you may not know is that I am indeed a sports journalist here in Barbados. So I will say I have no problem with what he did because, and it's very dangerous, this story has proven to be true. He may not have got it directly from Aaron Rodgers or from the Green Bay Packers, but I think what happened, he's not said this, I suspect he got that from a source from a team looking to trade for him. And I think the team used Adam Schefter to put pressure on the Green Bay Packers. So for that, I have no problem because we've not heard the Green Bay Packers deny this. Actually, we've heard the Green Bay Packers do nothing but confirm this in their actions and their words. And Aaron Rodgers has not come out and dispel the reports, nor have his confidants who work in the media. Also, I will say as a journalist, I probably would have done the same thing, but here's the thing, I would have released the story earlier for fear of getting beaten by my competitors.
Yeah.
My issue comes, and it's 1 point, but twofold. Well, really was 1 point. I would not have released it on draft day because then you're just doing this to, as you said, to get clicks, to get likes, to get a bigger following, if that is possible for Adam Schefter, or be relevant on draft night, when typically you're not as relevant as, say, your draft analysts like Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, and whoever else would have been on the ESPN set. My thing also, I would not have dropped that on draft night for the big reason this. When you drop that on draft night, you're giving the impression that one of two sides wanted the information released. You have given the impression that Aaron Rodgers camp wanted that to be released on draft night so as to put pressure on Green Bay by the amount of teams that we've been calling, searching for draft picks or draft capital to move forward. Or you would have given the impression on the Green Bay side that they are, whenever this gets out, that the Green Bay Packers did this because they were being pressured by Aaron Rodgers. That's the only reason I would not drop that on draft night, because you're giving the impression that either side wanted this information released. When since then, we've realized neither side wanted this to get out in the public, and you could understand why. Like, the Packers organization don't want to come across as incompetent, and I'm not calling them incompetent, but I would not want to. And nor would you want a situation where it is public that you're at loggerheads with your star quarterback, especially when the media's already drilled it that you are not helping out your star quarterback. And as we've seen now, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't want that news out in the public because A, he could eventually work it out, and B, and most importantly, you like the area, you like the fan base, and know the fan base is now coming across like you are this big turncoat, we no longer want Aaron Rodgers. And I can tell you as a Packers fan, and you could probably tell the rest of us as well, the love for Aaron Rodgers is coming down just a bit.
It is. And before we move on, I just want to say, I mean, draft night is after the Super Bowl, and maybe opening weekend, the biggest night in the NFL. When you draft a story like this, my first reaction when I heard this, I was like, okay, so chances are whoever released like this story, no matter who released it, is going to change the draft philosophy of what happens. Like whatever the original pick was going to be, that's thrown. Like I texted my friend, I was like, the draft just turned upside down. And I think that's the sports capital I was talking about. Like you've released this story, and I get it, it was a great story. And obviously the beauty of it is that there were truths in it, even though he did spice it up. The fundamental basis of it was true. Aaron Rodgers is not happy. We've known that for a while. To spice it up, though, the reason why I'm like, it's not that bad is because, as you mentioned, number one, there is truth to it. And number two, let's just be honest, this isn't anything new, Like, this isn't anything new. So when you drop this story on draft night, you're affecting more than just Aaron Rodgers and the front office. You're affecting the potential players that could be drafted. You're affecting the other 31 teams around the league because chances are they're going to try to change their draft philosophy. They're going to try to, as we heard with the 49ers, string up some trade calls to try to see if they can get Aaron Rodgers. So, like, it has a bigger effect on just Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And I think that is my main issue, is that you didn't just affect the two parties involved. You really affected every member of the National Football League by dropping this story on draft day.
So we mentioned draft day, and I'm going to cycle through this because we've touched on this a lot, but quickly because Neil does have it in his upper thirds, and he'd be mad if I cycle through this. But
yeah,
do you think, concerning that, Aaron Rodgers was so upset with the organization, should they have drafted a wide receiver just to appease him in the first round, that is?
Hey, are you talking about in this specific draft? Or
this specific 2021 draft?
In the 2021 draft, no. Because it just wasn't needed in this draft. We have Devontae Adams. Allen Lazard played, despite the fact that he missed most of the season due to the abdominal strain that you alluded to earlier. He did have a pretty good season while he was there. Robert Tonyan had a phenomenal season. And the big X factor in all this was Devin Funchess didn't play because of COVID-19. So the wide receiver position isn't an issue. Now, you asked me this question last season. I'm going to say yes. I think we should have drafted a wide receiver because there were a lot of them available. It wouldn't have hurt. But no, I don't think drafting a wide receiver, again, as I've said all show, drafting a wide receiver wouldn't have done anything to decrease the fact that Aaron Rodgers feels disrespected by the Packers. So no, I don't think drafting a wide receiver would have really changed anything. In fact, actually, I think it might have made it worse by saying, let's just get this guy to shut up. Let's just give him wide receiver. And that's really not what he wants anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've touched on this at length earlier in the show, so I won't spend much time on it other than to say what I've said already. It was not a need. You have Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who I forgot to mention, led the league in yards per reception. Now you have Devin Funchess coming back. It was not an area of need, and especially when you saw how the NFC Championship game unfolded, it was clear you wanted a first-round cornerback. So I won't touch on that too long because we've really gone through this. And as you said, let's look worse. It was like, okay, let's just draft this wide receiver. No, shut him up. And also, it just showed we could have drafted a wide receiver a long time ago, but hey, it's only now we're going to give you this wide receiver because you're putting pressure on them. That being said, it seems like, well, to the media, there are only two ways out.
Mm-hmm.
Should I say, one of those ways it would seem is to trade Aaron Rodgers. That's what he wants. In your estimation, because I surely don't know, who are the front runners in any trade for Aaron Rodgers right now?
I did some digging. Took some notes on this, and this is where all the notes are coming from. I did some digging. I'm not as good as Adam is at creating trade packages, but I did create some of my own trade packages. I also stole some trade packages that I saw that I think make sense. I think there is one team. I think it's a clear-cut favorite. That team is Jeopardy. It's very simple. It's very simple. Jeopardy gets a Hall of Fame quarterback, fan of the show. He has experience. He just hosted the show for 2 weeks. And they don't have to give anything up. I think this is a win-win for Jeopardy. Sucks to be the Packers, though. But, yeah, I think Jeopardy is the clear front runner. Now, if you want to limit this to just teams in the NFL, I would say that the front runners obviously are the Denver Broncos, because that's just they haven't made any quarterback moves. So they wouldn't be stepping on anybody's toes. I mean, you could say Drew Lock, they'd be stepping on Drew Lock's toes, but Drew Lock hasn't done anything for the Broncos that would lend them to want to keep him, especially not over Aaron Rodgers. So I think the Denver Broncos would be the obvious front runner, simply because they didn't make any move they didn't make a move to draft Justin Fields in the draft. Instead, they picked Patrick Surtain. They have draft capital. They have a wide receiver that they can give to the Packers, and then of course they've got Drew Lock, who is, if I have to pick between Drew Lock and Jordan Love, I'm going to take Drew Lock, even though they both suck, so it doesn't really matter. Outside of the obvious favorite, I'm going to go on a bit of a stretch here. I'm going to say that if he doesn't end up in Denver, I would say that the Washington football team would be, I think, the next in line behind the Broncos. They have draft capital. They're not really in a position to really extend any stars without hurting themselves. So that might be an issue. But of all the teams that when I'm thinking, we've heard obviously the 49ers have been thrown to the hat. The Broncos, the Dolphins, I think have come up. ESPN had the Giants on their list and the Browns, the Raiders, maybe even the Vikings, just because Favre did it. I actually think that the Washington football team of all these teams are the best equipped to win right now. You look at the Broncos, they're obviously missing a quarterback and a lot of other pieces. The Dolphins, they're not going to be able to overcome their youth, not just on the field, but off the field. The Giants, they've got a long way to go. The Browns, although they're very complete, they just don't have the experience to get there. And the AFC is you've got the Chiefs, the Bills, the Patriots, they're still there. The Dolphins, that's very tough. The Raiders are in the division with the Chiefs. So you go to Raiders or Denver, you're just competing for second place. You go to Minnesota, you're not really changing scenery. I think the only benefit in going to Minnesota would be you get to play the Packers twice a year. And you end up San Francisco. I've said this several times. I think the NFC West is the toughest division in football. So going to San Francisco isn't going to make it any easier for you to win a Super Bowl, because you still have to go through the Seahawks and the Rams and all the other teams. So I think the Washington football team would be the best. I think they're the most equipped to win with Aaron Rodgers, because really all they need is a quarterback. Their defense, as we saw towards the end of the season, got really, really good. They have the best defense in their division, for whatever that's worth. They've got a pretty consistent offense. Logan Thomas paid dividends. We know what Trey McLaurin brings to the table. They've got a decent running attack as well. I think their only main concern right now is finding a secondary option to go alongside with Trey McLaurin, something that the Packers also are trying to figure out with Devon Adams, and strengthen that offensive line. But, I think the Washington football team, they're equipped to win right now. They have the continuity. Obviously, the Cowboys on paper are better than the Washington football team, but do I like the Cowboys' chances to win the division? Not really. And in the NFC East, because of how bad they are, only one team's going to make it to the playoffs out of that division. So I think the Broncos are the clear-cut favorite because they haven't made any moves at the quarterback position. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if Washington at least tries to take a stab at it. I would see them trading Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe Matt Ioannidis, and a first and second round pick in both the 2022 and 2023 drafts that I came up with on my own, by the way, a couple of weeks ago. I felt good, actually, when I saw ESPN post it, not long after. I was like, I think I'm cut out for this. But no, I think the Washington football team after the Denver Broncos would be next. If I have to pick after them, I'd say the Miami Dolphins. But the Denver Broncos for sure are the clear-cut favorite because they haven't made a move at the quarterback position to improve that position because they think they have a shot at Aaron Rodgers. And I think they do. I think they have a legitimate shot to land Aaron Rodgers for sure. I
like your list, only that it will say I cannot see the Packers trading within the conference, especially to a situation where he'd be in a prime position to win now with the Washington football team. I just can't see that happening.
Yeah.
The reason I ask you, I honestly don't know. Like I am not like Adam that can whip up these trade packages. And by Adam, I mean our guy Adam Lewis from the What Offseason Pod. What I will say, because I have a show and I have to say it, is this: whatever you're doing to trade for Aaron Rodgers, it has to start at 3 first-rounders to start with. And the reason I say that is that you look at the situation in Seattle. During the offseason, the Bears offered 3 first-round picks, along with, I want to say, 2 seconds or 2/3 for Russell Wilson in trade. And the Seattle Seahawks said no, they moved on from that. So I have to say, and then you heard reports, I think the Bears made a similar offer for Deshaun Watson in Houston.
Yeah.
So I do believe, and this is a guy who has, like Russell Wilson does not have a regular season MVP, and Deshaun Watson has neither regular season MVP or even a Super Bowl. You're going to have to start for a 3-time a 3-time MVP winner and a Super Bowl champ, a Super Bowl MVP. You're likely going to have to start at 3 first and a couple seconds. I don't think teams nowadays are interested in veteran players or players with contracts or, wear and tear. They don't. I think everything is draft capital now. So I will say,
I do think though the only 2 teams that could get away with it with only giving up, the Broncos can get away with only giving up 2 first-round picks because they've got players that they can put on the field right now for the Packers in Patrick Surtain and Tim Patrick and Drew Lock. So they can afford, because they've got the players, they can afford to only do 2 first-round picks. Same thing can be said for the Washington football team, although the assets, again, in terms of playable assets, aren't that valuable. When you start talking about the Dolphins, who they need their draft capital to continue to improve, the Giants, who also need theirs, the Browns, who really don't have anything to bring to the table other than Baker Mayfield. You get into the Raiders, and despite what they offer, I don't think Aaron Rodgers would want to have to deal with John Gruden. The Vikings, who, as we both know, the Packers aren't going to trade. Even if they trade within the conference, they're definitely not going to trade within the division and have to deal with Aaron Rodgers twice a year. And then you got the 49ers, who I think have, even though they can offer a lot of draft capital, that's pretty much all they can offer unless the Packers want to take on Trey Lance and or Jimmy Garoppolo as well. But yeah, that's for sure, though, especially when you're looking at, again, there were conversations of Nick Wright, for what it's worth, was suggesting that teams offer a first-round pick to the Texans for every year that he's on the roster. Now, I don't think anyone would do that, but Deshaun Watson is no Aaron Rodgers, and if you're suggesting 4 or 5 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers and for Deshaun Watson, and you're saying that's the baseline for Deshaun Watson, then that definitely has to be the bare minimum for a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who is a Super Bowl champion and a 3-time regular season MVP.
What I will say is this, where Denver is concerned, their recent draft could only make sense if indeed they believe or they have a handshake agreement to get Aaron Rodgers in a trade. Because, as you said, they passed up on Justin Fields at 9 and Matt Jones to take Patrick Surtain. And I'm not telling you Patrick Surtain is not a great player. But when you look, and especially they just recently acquired via free agency one of the Bears' cornerbacks to go in that defense.
Yes. Yeah.
Getting Patrick Surtain only makes sense if you indeed intend to package him in a trade for Aaron Rodgers, because the Packers want nothing more than that outside corner. Even then, it doesn't make sense because Patrick Surtain is a player that can help you win right now. When the Packers trade Aaron Rodgers, that is not a team in a position to win right now, because as we went on and on for the entire show, a man who throws 17 interceptions in his final season at Utah State and then is not good enough to make the roster as a backup quarterback or an active player for none of the 16 regular season games or 2 postseason games, that guy is not ready to be a starting quarterback on a playoff team. That is clearly not the case. Yeah. So that being said, Dwayne, is there any situation, or how do we see a situation where the 2 sides make up? Can this be squashed? Can this beef, for lack of a better word, be squashed? Or what will it take to settle this situation?
Can it be squashed? Yes, it is. This is not. I don't even know. I don't even know what would be like a sports equivalent. But I mean, when I think of like all-time beefs just in terms of sports. I'm thinking like, although this isn't like a player front office thing, this is player play. I'm thinking like Kobe Shaq type thing. This is not at all a Kobe Shaq level beef, and even that was able to be squashed. Now again, those are two players, so the dynamic's not the same. But I mean, that was a well publicized, pretty gruesome beef. So when I look at it from that perspective, it is not impossible for this to be fixed. I do think though that pride and egos have to be swallowed. That being Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy. Not so much Aaron Rodgers, although Aaron Rodgers does have to check his pride at the door. I think he does have to realize that the Packers do have an obligation to produce long-term success. Whether Aaron Rodgers is a part of that or not, that remains to be seen. But I will also say, though, that Brian and Mark both have to realize Aaron Rodgers is no Drew Brees. We saw Drew Brees last season at 41, and Adam will tell you he was not looking good at 41. He wasn't. He wasn't even a top 20 quarterback in the league last season at 41. Tom Brady, despite winning the Super Bowl, he didn't look that great for much of the season. Anyway, I mean, when you've got a lot of talent, it's kind of max. But when you strip it away and just look at how he was performing, he didn't look like the Tom Brady of old. He didn't look like a top 20 quarterback, in my personal opinion, either. You've got, Aaron Rodgers was the best quarterback in the league last season. He's been a top 5 quarterback for the last, he's been a top 5 quarterback the last 3 years, top 10 for the last 5. So like, it's not like Aaron Rodgers can't still produce for you. He would do better for you than a Jordan Love would, or even a Drew Lock or any other quarterback you would potentially trade for. So, I think it can be fixed. I think it starts with some pride and some egos being checked at the door. I think it starts with figuring out whatever this contract extension is going to be, what it's going to look like. Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy, I think, as a non-starter for Aaron Rodgers, they're going to have to give him what he wants. And what he wants is to play until 2024. That is going to happen. And then we'll see from there.
So then, I think you just said it. How does this situation end?
If it's going to end with Aaron Rodgers being a Packer, it's going to end with Aaron Rodgers getting his money through 2024. If it's going to end with Aaron Rodgers not being a Packer, well, then that would depend on which team provides the best which team provides the best trade package. And then if that's the case, may the best team win. But if we're thinking best case scenario as Packers fans, how does this end with Aaron Rodgers being a Packer, being happy as a Packer? Aaron Rodgers is going to want to, whatever the dollar amount is, he's going to want that through 2024. That's a non-starter, and he's going to want some privileges. I don't want that. That's a very loose word, but he's going to want to be involved. Maybe not in personnel decisions, but he's going to want to know what's happening in terms of who they're pursuing in free agency, who's getting money, when they're getting money, who's getting cut, who's not getting cut, who's getting drafted. All of those things, I think, are things that Aaron Rodgers wants, and I think those are things that Aaron Rodgers deserves. Again, Tom Brady in one season has had more influence on what happens on that roster than Aaron Rodgers has in 16 years. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to draw to that as his basis, as his opening statement, if you will.
So can this be fixed, and how can it be fixed? Yes, again, in that story, Andrew Brandt brought up some pertinent points in that we heard just this season alone, or off season, Russell Wilson wanted out, and we haven't heard about that since. Similarly with Deshaun Watson, the off season is long. You know me.
Well, in Deshaun Watson's case, they've got some other things.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a variation there, but right. It can't be fixed because of. Okay, well, if you'd asked me this a couple hours ago, I'd tell you no. Because this is a very, very, for the lack of a better word, stubborn individual. To the point where we have been told, and we don't know this for certain, this guy does not have a relationship with his immediate family. And these are not my words. These are words coming from his brother, who was on The Bachelor, and from his mother, I think. These are not our words. Yeah. So this is not me saying this. It has been reported he does not have a relationship with his immediate family. So it's clear that this man, if he feels a particular way, he will be dead set against that. I told myself the only way this works, he returns to wearing the same jersey I have on right now is if Brian Gutekunst is fired. I mean, when you call somebody Jerry Krause in a team chat, it's clear that you do not like the man. First, you've obviously compared yourself or likened yourself to Michael Jordan. Because that's the only way you call him. Your general
that's the only way you're going to call
it, And then you think that the man's a bumbling idiot, which Jerry Krause isn't, by the way, because Jerry Krause, like him or not, is the architect of a 6-time champion Chicago Bulls team. What stock you put into his place in the history, remains to be seen. But he is the architect, or he's the general manager of that team, whether you like it or not, or whether Aaron Rodgers likes it or not. Whether Aaron Rodgers likes it or not, Gutekunst did indeed get him the head coach that has gone 13-3 in successive seasons, even if Aaron Rodgers believes that he is the man, mostly responsible for that. That being said, we can talk about respect all we want. I find it hard to believe that the reports are true. A multi-year guaranteed extension worth $40 to $45 million per year up to 2024. I do not see, unless the Denver Broncos are also willing to offer that. And we have heard reports that the Green Bay Packers are upset that there have been teams talking to Aaron Rodgers without their permission. So that could possibly be the case. I still can't see a scenario where Aaron Rodgers turns on that sort of commitment. You may not like your general manager, but this is a team still built to win right now this year.
Yep.
And $40 to $45 million per year, that is a lot of money.
It's a lot of cheddar.
So where do I see it end up? I think at some stage, a public apology is going to be issued of some sort, or at least not maybe a public apology, but a statement going forward. I think they'll apologize behind closed doors. And this is not me being a willful Packers fan. It's not me being optimistic, because you know me, I'm not an optimistic person at all. But I don't know how you turn down $40 to $45 million per year. I don't know. I don't know the human being as an athlete that is going to do that. And it is easy to say, I feel disrespected. I'm not valuing the organization. Money cures all. And if you ask me how it ends, if the reports are true, then he stays on that multi-year extension. If they're not, then I don't think Gutekunst and Mark Murphy are silly enough to allow a situation where Aaron Rodgers just retires, leave them a player short, and you don't recoup anything for him. So I think they trade him to a situation where they can recoup as much draft capital as they possibly can. I could go on and on and on and on the situation, but I think we have finally run out of time, even though it doesn't feel that way. So let me thank you again. Before I let you get off, Dwayne, please let the people watching know how they can find you and what you have coming up next.
You can find me on YouTube, G.O.A.T Talk Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at GTP Marcus. This week, there's not a lot. It's kind of like a heavy production week. We've got, so I do football, basketball, and wrestling. There's a wrestling pay-per-view coming out on Sunday. So we're going to post a preview episode about that on Sunday. So you can check that out. But other than that, this is just going to be a heavy production week. All the good stuff's coming out next week and the week after.
So make sure and get to subscribe, follow G.O.A.T Talk Podcast to get that good stuff that's coming out. If you're a fan of this show or you just watch it just because you have nothing else better to do, then you know on Thursdays, the Adam that we're referring to, Adam Lewis from the One Off Season Podcast, you know that we have an IG live show every Thursday, and we're probably going to touch on this topic and go into some NBA action because that regular season is winding down. Celtics just lost. Yes, Marsha, unfortunately, your Celtics just lost Jaylen Brown for the season. And, you know, a lot of
Russ just set that the triple double record. I just opened my phone to that. Yeah, he just did it as we speak. Yep.
So we're going to touch on that. And next week, Monday, as you know, same bat time, same bat channel. So for Dwayne Marcus of the G.O.A.T Talk Podcast, I am the Justin of this Justin, and we are signing out.
I don't have a mark on my face, and my upset son
can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.